Hi, everyone. I am so glad to be here. Hi, Alicia.
Hi.
This is our routine. I've been so good in preparing this time, and I was so proud of myself. And then I realized I didn't get the title screen ready, so that's why I'm late. Because if there's no title screen, then the people who come to this post and do not know what it is about, do not see the title. They just see two heads, my big forehead, and that's not something that you want to see at the beginning of the video. Anyway, we have a big topic here. We have also Christina, I believe, or Judy in the background.
Judith's joining us, yes.
And Alicia will be helping to moderate questions and comments. We will have an hour together. And we'll talk about kidneys and kidney disease. It's actually one of my favorite topics. Not that it is, it is a good thing to deal with kidney disease on any level, but I feel that it's one of those problems that can be addressed quite well and efficiently, and dogs live a healthy and long life, normal length of life, if it's addressed well and if it's treated early. So, where do we start? We're going to start with 7 wonders of the world. Before I started, I was thinking I have to find a better set of pictures, that would have all the 7 wonders in here. And then I couldn't find anything better. So this is a little pixelated, but there's the pyramids and Machu Picchu and the Colosseum in Italy and the Taj Mahal and all those different places that are absolutely amazing. And they were built in times when they didn't have cranes, they didn't have wheel. Many of these sites have been built many thousands, actually some, not many thousands, but a few thousand years back. So I thought there was one wonder missing, because if I made a list, I would put another wonder, and that would be a kidney, believe it or not, because kidneys are, in my opinion, the 8th miracle of the world, the 8th wonder. They are such an amazing, sophisticated piece of organ. I wanted to say machinery, but it's not machinery. And they really blow me away in how refined they are. And before we start learning about how to diagnose kidney disease and how to treat and prevent kidney disease, I'd like to actually talk to you about the anatomy of kidney disease, kidneys, not kidney disease, and how they're put together and how amazing they are, why I would like to put them in the 8th wonder of the world. Alicia, you'll have to remind me, maybe we should file an application that kidneys should be the 8th wonder. So when we get to the anatomy, I will show a screen again. The kidneys are built or put together from cortex and the medulla. The cortex is basically I call it the little peel or the little top layer, and the medulla is where the center of the kidneys. And you can see that there's a little bit of a cut on this little image, and there's a little unit which is called nephron. And the nephron is basically a filtration system. And I usually tell people that the best way you imagine it is a funnel. And in the funnel, there's a blood vessel. And the blood vessel is so refined and thin that it actually lets some of the plasma out, not the blood cells, red blood cells, but the plasma. And the plasma then filtrates and it creates primary urine. And that these little tubes, which we call tubuli, and I have to apologize if I don't pronounce it exactly correctly in English, but it's called tubuli or tubulus if it's one. And that's the filtration system as well, that basically handles electrolytes and reabsorbs water or lets water out or in, manages sodium and other electrolytes, potassium. And it's quite amazing that the kidneys not only filtrate the urine, they also regulate the body's blood pressure, because if the blood pressure is too high, the kidneys would not function well and they would be damaged. And if the blood pressure is low, the kidneys would not filtrate properly. It's like if you have a cheesecloth. Imagine if you put too much pressure, the cheese will come out of the holes, and if you don't put enough of the pressure, the cheese will be too watery. No ricotta cheese or mozzarella is done with the wrong pressure. It has to be just perfect. So basically, if you think about it, the kidneys and the glomerulus is just old Italian mother's cheesecloth in a little more sophisticated way, okay? And obviously the mother also chooses what she puts in and what she leaves out and so on. So this number, the 25% that I put right here, stands for the number of kidney units that we need or our dogs need to have proper filtration, which is quite cool. It's almost like the kidneys have 75% of all the assets, all the units saved up for bad times, because evolution kind of made us have extra kidney units because they're very fine, very sensitive, and they're damaged, then that would be it. So 25% is needed to have normal filtration. So when you go to your veterinarian and your veterinarian tells you that your dog has kidney disease, usually it means that more than 75% of these units have been destroyed. And that's why I feel that it's super important to learn how to protect your dog's kidneys, and maybe how to protect your own kidneys as well, because you know that many people now have kidney disease, need to go for dialysis, need to go for kidney transplants, and that is very serious business. I'll go back to my slides because I want you to have some visuals as well. And so remember that when the diagnosis is given and the toxins are increased, and I'll talk about the toxins later, that means that more than 75% of the kidney units have been destroyed. Those little tiny units. And there's millions and millions. I don't really know exactly the number, but if I give you the number, it wouldn't really matter. We just know that we need 25%. And if Alicia wants to look it up, he can tell us how many glomeruli are in the kidneys. I had a lot of fun today preparing this lecture because I refreshed what I found to be one of the most annoying and boring and uninteresting topics in physiology. When I went to vet school, and we had an amazing professor, but she was really great, but she also knew that unless she repeated something over and over and over and over and over, we would not remember it. So she kept repeating things over and over and over and over. And obviously she was also repeating the topics of kidneys and how they work and what enzymes and proteins are needed and all that. So I was considering that I'll leave this all out. And then I thought, no, you guys are smart and you may want to know and you may want to remember how this cheesecloth of the Italian grandmother works. And so I will tell you that it's super amazing. The kidneys filtrate the primary urine, but that's not it. They have to actually work on increasing the blood pressure, monitoring the electrolyte levels with all these different sensors, and it's basically a symphony between the brain, between the adrenal glands that are just adjacent to the kidneys, then the kidneys, and a whole bunch of proteins and enzymes and electrolytes and all that. So it's super important for us to know that there actually 5 different kind of protein / enzymes here. They're called angiotensin, tensinogen, and then angiotensin 1 and 2. And there's also 3 and 4, but they're not as significant, so I left them out, not to confuse and not to be too lengthy. If we talk about the angiotensinogen, think about it as the milk for the cheese. It basically is a protein that is the ingredient kind of for the 2 others, the angiotensin 1 and 2. And believe it or not, this angiotensinogen is produced by the liver. So if the liver is actually diseased, then you may have problems with the kidneys too. That's why I have been focusing so much on liver detox and liver support in medicine, because the liver is another, actually, that may be the 9th miracle of the world. Maybe we'll put a second application in. It is, I just looked at increased levels lead to a rise in blood pressure. So all these different ingredients, if they're increased, they actually, or these proteins, they rise blood pressure. Okay, so the first one is angiotensinogen. The second one is produced by the kidneys. So when the blood pressure drops, the kidneys produce renin. And renin is like the helper that puts the milk together, and then we put the milk together with renin, and we get the cheese. I'm just kidding, but I just wanted to know that it's an extra ingredient. It's a protein, and it basically transforms the angiotensinogen or gen to angiotensin 1. And then there is another ingredient, and that is the angiotensin. That's number 2 protein here. So we have 1, 2, 3, but this is more of an helper, and these 2 are important. It's created by the reaction between those 2, and it's, again, the ingredient that is needed for angiotensin 2. So you have this cascade of reactions that kind of lead to increased blood pressure in the body. And in order for the 1 converting to 2, we need angiotensin converting enzyme. And if we do not have that, or if we block it, then the blood pressure cannot rise. And this is actually the mechanism that is used to control blood pressure in heart disease, in sometimes kidney disease, and we'll talk about that, and in humans in high blood pressure. So that's the ACE inhibitor that we would use as a medication. So it basically interrupts the flow of the cascades, and then the blood pressure cannot rise. The other thing that is needed, and I'm just going to jump over the angiotensin 2 because you already know about it. The other thing that we kind of need to know is that there is a hormone, aldosterone, that helps, and that's produced by the adrenal gland. It helps to reabsorb sodium, so brings sodium back in the bloodstream and pushes potassium out of the bloodstream. Now, this is important for the electrolyte regulation in the body, because if there was too much potassium, for example, the heart would stop. And it does sometimes. When the adrenal glands stop working and they don't produce enough of this aldosterone hormone, that is called Addison's disease. And Addison's disease is actually a disease where we have high potassium, low sodium. So this hormone doesn't work, it's not present. And then we have disturbances in electrolytes and everything goes wrong. So this can be a terminal, very dangerous, fatal condition. And often it is missed. There is an article on Addison's disease if you wanted to know. So I'm going into the detail because I wanted you to know and understand that the kidneys are really amazing. And as I was sitting here this morning, I was thinking, wow, like how does this all happen? That, two people or two animals mate, and then a whole being with these amazing kidneys is formed without anyone controlling it. And this is actually something that I come to very often. I was thinking, we humans, we try to control everything, and it often goes wrong. And nature controls nothing, and it mostly goes right. And maybe there's something to learn about this for 2020 and beyond, because I personally am a very freedom-loving person, and Alicia can confirm that. I think that the best order is established when humans and animals get reasonable degree of freedom and not to tell each other what to do. Imagine if the I don't know, if the left leg was telling the right leg what to do, right? Like, it doesn't really make sense. And we as humans are equal. We are just different forms of legs and bodies. Why do we need to tell each other what to do constantly and push each other around, boss each other around? Anyway, going back to kidneys, you know that I sometimes derail, and Alicia will forgive me. So the core problem in kidney disease is damage to neurons and nephrons, and the nephrons are the kidney units that you now know very well. And the other thing that is super important about kidney disease, that kidney disease happens and the units get destroyed for many different reasons, but one of the most important and common reason is that the kidneys get inflamed. As a result of the inflammation, the body starts creating antibodies against the inflamed cells, and the immune system virtually goes and destroys the kidneys, which is kind of a weird thing. But the body does not like inflammation, and the immune system usually tries to remove whatever is inflamed and doesn't really function properly. Or if it dies due to bacteria or high pressure or something like that. So we'll be talking about the different causes of kidney disease. And I put this picture here as the first one, because I learned in 30 years of veterinary practice that a large majority of dogs at a certain point of their life have really bad teeth. And the bad teeth lead to gingivitis and bacterial overgrowth in the mouth, but also bacterial spread in two very important organs, and that's the heart and the kidneys. And the kidneys are super sensitive to bacteria. They can be destroyed by bacterial load very, very easily. And that's why it's super important to keep your dog's teeth clean. If there is nothing that you remember from this presentation, remember that you need to keep your dog's teeth clean. And once again, as we usually do that, we have an article about dental care, and we have a video about dental care and how to keep your dogs healthy with or without anesthesia. Believe it or not, my first dog, Sky, had no dental anesthesia, and he was 16 and he had perfect teeth. So if you're curious to see how I did it, just go and see the video, watch the video on YouTube or on our website, and I'm sure that Christina will, Judy. Judy will post the links. We have such an amazing team. Our customer service team has been really amazing, and Alicia is the one who trains them. So I'm every day I'm grateful to Alicia that she's made my life easier, that I don't need to answer every single email and question that we have people who help, but we do try to help as many people as we can. So the frequent causes, I'm gonna just talk about some nutrient deficiencies. If the body doesn't have the nutrients, don't be surprised that it doesn't work. We should not be surprised it doesn't work. Tomatoes don't grow without nutrients. Body doesn't function well without nutrients. Bikes do not get built without the right building parts. Bodies don't work without the right building parts. Toxins. There's some, I just gave you one example of renal toxicity, and that's grapes and raisins. My friend's dog, lovely dog from Vancouver, got into chocolate-coated raisins. Imagine that. Chocolate pressed raisins. And she did have actually kidney disease, but because it was acute and we took the steps right away, we were able to reverse it. So she actually still alive 10 years later. I'm really glad. Bacteria obviously is another problem. Female dogs they have more frequent bacterial load, especially older female dogs. They may have a little bit more fat around the vulva, and it kind of gets a little buried in the layers, in the folds. And then when they pee, they actually kind of soil the surrounding with urine, and bacterial growth may happen. Now, also, older female dogs may have looser sphincter and therefore less of a barrier for the bacteria to ascend to the bladder. And sometimes when the immune system is weak, it goes all the way up to the kidneys. So that's another possible infectious kind of route. But dental route is actually the one that I would like to emphasize here. I'm going to move my little presentation icon to the side. Urinary stones. I talked about them last time. If there is a blockage of the ureter, which is the little tube, fine tube between the kidneys and the bladder, that can actually increase the pressure in the kidneys and it can damage the kidneys. Immune system disease, autoimmune system disease, or just the fact that there's inflammation in the kidneys due to all the other causes, it will result in immune reaction. The other factors, and I consider them being contributing factors. There can be processed food, and the reason for that is that there is dehydrated food actually really puts the kidneys under a lot of stress. It's not normal situation that the kidneys have to reabsorb so much water, because the kibble is like a sponge and it soaks all the water out of the digestive tract. And then there's a state of almost like a permanent state of dehydration. And that's no fun for the kidneys and not for your dog. That's why dogs that actually are on processed food drink more. And once again, don't feel bad that you're feeding kibble. A large majority of people are still feeding kibble. But if it comes to protecting your dog's kidneys, there's no way that you can protect your kidneys as well on processed food, whether it's freeze-dried or whether it's natural dehydrated barf or whether it's kibble. It's just not the right food for protecting kidneys. Vaccination is another possible cause. Over excessive vaccinations, and we kind of I know it's happening, and I've had the opportunity to just see the archetypal over-vaccinated dogs. The immune system gets really overwhelmed, because in normal situations, dogs would face just one disease at the time. But we give multivalent vaccines, multi-disease vaccines. And by the time a puppy is 4 months, it got 16 different diseases. And 7 of them usually, or 5, comes at the same time. And maybe even 20, if I count all the different vaccines that there are, like Lyme disease that I do not really like at all, and kennel cough that is useless, and all that stuff. I'm not saying that you should not vaccinate your dog, but I think that there's a very safe way to reduce vaccines to minimum. And I've experimented so far that when it comes to parvo and distemper, neither PAX or Sky had those vaccines, and they maintained their antibodies for a lifetime, just for maternal antibodies, then socializing, and then going on through life. Vaccine companies do not want you to know that. It's a big problem. But I'm confident that after you read the article on vaccination, that you'll be able to figure something out. Hyperthyroidism in cats, especially, and I don't really work with cats, but I thought I would put it in. Hyperthyroidism is excessive thyroid hormone, and it leads to excess or increased blood pressure. And as a result, it can damage kidneys. And a lot of cats actually have hyperthyroidism/kidney failure. Hypothyroidism may lead to not infections, deficiency, but immune deficiency. When I create these slides, sometimes I just type and type really fast. So those are other contributing factors. There's tons of metabolic reactions in the body. I say it almost every single Facebook Live. There's 37,000 billion chemical reactions happening in the body every second. 37 with 21 zeros, which means a lot of reactions without the building blocks. Nothing can really go as well as it should be, and the kidneys are part of the carnage or the victims of those deficiencies. I am big about deficiencies, or big, I love talking about this because it's such a simple principle of healing and it works so well. It's actually one of the reasons why, few simple supplements that you can get from us will make so much difference, and why they're rated so highly, because they really follow a very simple principle of healing and health. Just recently, I read a book on psychology. This woman, her last name is Pierce. I can't remember what her first name is, but she says, so many people go to psychologists and they spend years and thousands of dollars trying to solve a problem. I have a very simple method that will most likely solve your problems, and blah, blah, blah. So the rest of the book is about that. And it's really amazing. And the same thing with healing. Sometimes we make things really complicated and we don't have to. So going back to nutrient deficiency, this is a result of hair test. Hair testing is kind of my test to go to when I'm looking at mineral deficiencies. Minerals are embedded in the hair, if you have some, because the hair grows out and it seals the plasma in the hair. And when you analyze the hair, you get a time capsule of mineral content in your dog's body. You can see this is actually, this is a very interesting case of very depleted dog, because the normal is somewhere in the light gray. And you can see that beside the selenium, this is a very depleted dog that was most likely on, I assume that it was either kibble or raw food without supplements and depleted poor quality ingredients. I can get back to the history, but I don't publicize the name of the client. This is just me as a practitioner right here on the left side. So this is just an example of what you can get. You really see that this dog is actually really depleted. It has normal toxin levels. It doesn't have excess, so that's good, but it's depleted in everything otherwise. The other thing that I wanted to talk about kidneys and why kidneys get disease sometimes is your dog's back. Your dog's back is like the energy highway that supplies the organs with energy flow, blood flow, and nerve flow. In Chinese medicine, they call the energy pathways energy meridians. And remember that the area that is important for your dog's kidneys is between the second and third lumbar vertebra. And it is very common that dogs run and play and twist and run and slip and get injured. And sometimes they get injured in that segment that relates to the kidneys. And because it will reduce the energy, blood flow, and nerve flow to the kidneys, the kidneys may start failing. And quite often when I run my hands along a dog's back and I feel a really extreme sensitivity in the kidney points, that is a suggestion that we really need to care about the kidneys. So you run your thumbs along your dog's back, then catch the last strip, and then you count 1, 2, 3, and that's the kidney point, just along the spine. So between the second and third lumbar vertebra. Lumbar spine is behind the thoracic spine, behind the last strip. But make sure that you go to the top of the last strip, not in the middle, somewhere in the middle of your dog's chest. Okay, that's super important. So medicine can be so fascinating when you start seeing these connections, when you really embrace curiosity and not really gobble up everything that you're being told by the people who have been practicing for 30, 40 years and have been practicing the same way. I think this the same thing about life in general. We need to constantly change and evolve. And when I see that something is not working, I try to find a solution. I try to find a way of figuring it out, or at least try to figure it out. I'm talking about toxins. Other toxins that are very dangerous and serious is antifreeze, and we know that we need to be very careful. Now there are products that are safe for animals and still can cool your car's engine. So try to use those. Try to request those. I talked about kibble. I'm just going to repeat it. I talked about bacteria, but bacteria is quite often the kind of sidekick. It's almost like, there is the main role in the act and then the side roles. And I think the bacteria truly has a side role in most situations where the immune system is depleted, the body is depleted, and then infections happen. There are some, like, for example, leptospirosis that can damage the kidneys. I've seen that as well. A dog that was immune suppressed and did get leptospirosis. Not a very common disease, but it can happen by drinking polluted water and having it contaminated by rodents and other mammals. So what are the symptoms of kidney disease? It's increased urination and increased drinking. But you should not be mistaking increased drinking from kibble related increased drinking, because that's a very different situation. If you feed your dogs kibble and then you start feeding either cooked homemade food or raw food, you will see that your dog's water consumption will drop down to 20%. It's kind of unbelievable. Another symptom of kidney disease is bad breath. If you see a dog with really bad teeth and really bad breath, check your dog's kidneys for sure. In more advanced forms of kidney disease, there may be ulcerations, vomiting, especially cats, kidney disease cats, they vomit and vomit and vomit and vomit. And sometimes in the advanced forms, lack of appetite, because if the electrolytes are out of whack, and if out of whack, that's a very medical term, and if they're just not balanced, then dogs don't feel like eating. The other consequences are anemia. Anemia is very, very common in dogs and cats with kidney disease, because kidneys produce erythropoietin, and I will actually show you this name as well if you're curious. Maybe you are. For some of those geeks out there, it's kind of good to know more, I think, about these diseases, because then the basics are really easy to remember. So erythropoietin causes, if there's lack of that, this hormone, it causes anemia, because this hormone stimulates the bone marrow and other organs like spleen and liver to maintain and ensure good blood supply, or red blood cell supply. And also calcitrol. And calcitrol, if there is a reduction, if the kidneys are diseased, then our dogs don't absorb calcium. So, sometimes you supplement calcium, or you give Green Min, our plant-based mineral supplement, and people email us and say, my dog is still low calcium. What's going on? It may be because the dog has kidney disease or some sort of hormonal issue. So now we're going to go to the diagnostics. I know that this is very information heavy, but I will do my best to go through it not too fast and not too slow. Now, how do we determine that your dog has, hopefully not, but if your dog has kidney disease, how do we diagnose that? There are several different steps. The first one, the very important one, is physical examination, obviously. and some questions about urination and drinking, and then we go into lab work. And lab work consists on blood work. It can consist of the chemistry and also hematology. And then we also collect urine sample. And if we see that there are any problems with those tests, then we may do culture and some additional tests. Now, increased urination and drinking can also be caused by adrenal disease, like Cushing's disease. So don't mistake those together. So there can be kibblitis, increasing drinking, nephritis or kidney disease, and adrenal disease, Cushing's disease. So you can see that this lab work result has a few highlighted elements, and that's urea and creatinine, and those are metabolites that are usually filtrated by the kidneys. And if these ones are elevated, then we need to kind of use caution and say there may be kidney disease. Okay, in this case, you can see that we have about 1.5 time elevation of urea and about slight elevation over the normal of creatinine. So this is the result. These are the reference ranges. If you see my mouse, can you see my mouse? Thank you, Alicia. And there's also a little bit of liver disease, see? And I was telling you about the renin, that it's produced by the liver and how it kind of ensures that the kidneys function just right. So we have two here. There may be slight elevation of liver enzymes and elevation of kidney disease, but that does not mean that we can diagnose and determine that this dog has kidney disease. A few more steps need to be taken. I'm going to show you the higher levels. Oops, something happened here. Okay, you can see that this is different lab test result, different style or different format from different analyzer. But if you look, the normal is up to 10 millimole, and we have 70. So this is an advanced kidney disease. Creatinine normal is up to 135. We have several fold times, like about 3 to 4 times elevation of creatinine. Now, there's a newer test that is usually included in diagnosis of kidney disease, and that's SDMA. And SDMA is an amino acid that is produced after protein is broken down in the body and digested. Now, SDMA is excreted by kidneys, and when the kidneys are not functioning well, the levels of SDMA go up. The SDMA amino acid has been discovered, or was discovered in 1970s, but they didn't know until the late 90s that it may be related to kidney function, or it may reflect kidney function. And we started using it gradually in the 2000s in dogs and cats as well. Now, it's a more accurate test than BUN and creatinine on its own. It is capable of registering early kidney disease. There's also one point that I would like to make. If you have a really healthy muscled animals, the creatinine levels can be elevated despite the kidneys being healthy. So SDMA is a really important value, critical value to assess when you're assessing your dog's kidneys. If you see that there's a suspicion for a kidney disease because urea and creatinine are high, you want to check the urine, and you want to check the urine for bacteria. And I usually would just send culture right in. Even though some people say, you can just analyze urine, just look under the microscope and see if there's bacteria. Sometimes you just don't see it that well. And I think that urine culture collected via the abdominal wall in the bladder is the best way to go, because if you contaminate it through just through free flow collection, then that may not be accurate. There may be misdiagnosis. Your vet may diagnose infection when there is not. If you have a female dog or male dog and you just collect it, right? Like, it doesn't really matter whether it's female or male. So I always ask to have a full bladder for the dog to come in the clinic, and it's a really simple procedure. Especially if your dog stays still for a few seconds. It doesn't hurt much. There's not much sensitivity in that area, and it really can spare your dog's kidneys. Sometimes we need to decide what is more important, whether we'll put up with a little bit of fuss of our dog or just kind of, rule out a serious condition. And that's why you always have to choose the least of the two evils, almost in everything, right, Alicia? Anyway, so when we check urine, we obviously check for crystals, and we check for bacteria, and any white blood cells and signs of infection. And we also check urine-specific gravity. And this is super, super important because do you remember I was telling you about the kidney unit and I was showing you these tubes here? And these tubes, they're surrounded by blood vessels, but these orange or kind of like brownish, orange, beigey tubes, they're the tubes that reabsorb the urine, especially if your dog doesn't drink. Your dog's kidneys have to recycle the urine or the water back. And if kidneys fail, then this recycling doesn't happen as readily. And if it doesn't happen, then the urine goes out diluted, despite the fact that your dog hasn't drank for 12 hours, 24 hours, the urine is still diluted and it should be really concentrated. Remember, if you're hiking and you run out of water and then you go to the bathroom, you probably see darker urine. That's because the urine is more concentrated, or your dog has darker urine. Darker urine may be also a sign that your dog or you have taken vitamins. So just don't, vitamin B especially makes it more yellow. So don't mistake those. But there's this little device that measures the urine-specific gravity. And if it's below, if I have elevated values of creatinine and urea, and if it's below 130, then I may be dealing with kidney disease. But especially if it's between, I'm just going to go 1008, okay, because it's 1.008 and 1.012, but I'll just go, if it's between 08 and 12, that means that the kidneys just basically are not functioning at all, not filtrating at all. If it's less than 08, that may be that your dog just gobbled up a whole puddle of water and the urine is more diluted. So that means that the kidneys are letting more water out. It does not necessarily mean that they're failing, okay? But this is kind of the 08 and 12. That's definitely very suspicious. And what you need to do in that case, you need to deprive what I usually used to do, told my clients, go home, take your dog's water at 8 o'clock p.m. and collect urine sample first thing in the morning and take the water away for that 12-hour period, and then bring it to me. The urine was usually over 30 if the kidneys functioned well. So even if I have elevated BUN and creatinine, and I can have normal kidney function if the value is over 30. You will not be probably buying this little instrument, but you could, and you could measure your dog's urine, right, after depriving him or her water. Now, the 13 to 29 area is kind of a gray zone. And there may be some differences how people see this, but I usually take the 30 as the cutoff point where I still have to be concerned. Maybe there's a starting kidney disease, maybe there's not. I talked about hair testing. You can determine what is missing, what minerals are missing. Talk about the hair analysis and how it is a really good tool to determine what your dog's minerals are and how your dog is nourished. You can get it in the form of hair key test, which is a test that we offer to dog lovers in our community. And I talked about the deficiencies here. So I'm just going, this is another test you can see. It's a little different. Some of these minerals are in excess, but this dog has low calcium, low magnesium, low sodium. Something is going on, either nutritionally or maybe kidneys. And the other thing that you're seeing here, mercury through the roof. And the reason why I put this test result here is that mercury is actually a very serious nephrotoxin. So if you like to feed your dog fish treats and fish, I'd suggest you stopping, because mercury is a very seriously toxic to the kidneys. What else? I'm just going to fly through. What do you do? How do you protect? How do you prevent kidney disease? Well, I do suggest that you feed raw or cooked food. We have an amazing recipe maker that you can use, and it's free. How do you prevent kidney disease in more ways? The essentials that I call Fabulous 4. I give them to packs 6 days a week, and I recommend you doing the same. I have raised a puppy on these supplements. I have offered them, and many people and dog lovers have used them. We have one problem. These reviews that you're seeing are actually real. I sometimes worry that people will think that we are just fudging the reviews, which we don't. But this is real stuff, and I'm so happy and so proud. And if we get a negative review, I'm really not upset because it just kind of makes it more balanced. But we rarely get that. And so nutrients are important, and I'm just going to go through each of them in a moment to kind of explain what they're for. Minimizing vaccines, reducing toxins, making sure that your dog gets, lives in a clean environment, that you don't use chemical cleaners and law treatments and fertilizers. All that counts because it's like a pile that grows bigger and bigger until our dogs get ill, and kidney disease may be one of them. Carrying water bottle, make sure that your dog does not get dehydrated. Make sure that your dog's back is checked because the lumbar spine is super important. All those are ways you can prevent kidney disease with. Now, the reason why I said liver was that I also recommend liver cleanse every 6 months because, as you learned now, the health of your dog's kidneys and liver depend on each other. I'm going to give you just an example of the recipe maker screen. You can go in and you can find out what meats you can choose for your dog and so on. And you may ask, so shall we feed low protein diet? Because low protein diet is the staple of conventional medical treatment. And I've learned the hard way because I used to treat, especially the feline patients, but also canine patients at the beginning of my veterinary work with low protein diet. And I've seen animals just disappear in front of my eyes. And if they lasted 1 year, it was a miracle. And then I was thinking, so wait a minute, if we are giving them low protein diets, we are basically malnourishing them because dogs and cats need protein diets. Is it more important that we reduce the protein for the kidneys' sake? And is it really important for the kidneys to have low protein, or is it some sort of myth? So I started kind of looking around and asking questions and dared to use raw diet for my cat when she was about 14 and was diagnosed with kidney disease because the first part of her life I was giving her kibble. She was born in 1990. So by 2004 or something turnaround, she had kidney disease, and I already was feeding her raw food, but she had the first part of her life on kibble. And she also turned to be hyperthyroid because that's another condition that happens quite often with processed food and when they're malnourished and toxic. So she lived until 21. No medication, no hyperthyroid medication, and protein-based diet. My cat died when she was 21. She was diagnosed when she was with hyperthyroidism when she was 7 and kidney disease when she was like mid-teens. So I know what I'm talking about, and quite often I'm just kind of humble and maybe excessively humble. I'm not humble about kidney disease. I know what I'm saying and what I'm doing here, and I want to pass it on because I know that feeding low protein diet is a ridiculous myth. And I would like to have a conversation with anyone who actually has formulated the diets that are low protein for cats and dogs. I use this picture because when I was preparing today's presentation, I used an old presentation of a typical kidney disease cat on low protein diet. This is the picture that I used to see, and then these cats come back for fluid treatment and they just kind of wither away. And this is my cat when she was about 20, actually. And she was on the kitchen counter, of course she was, and she was having a good time. So you can see the difference. This is, believe it or not, a copy of a recipe or ingredient list of commercial kidney diet. Rice, pork fat, dried egg product, flaxseed, corn gluten meal, chicken liver flavor, powdered cellulose, which is basically wood shavings, wood chips, and some other stuff. I'm speechless. You can see that I'm looking at these ingredients, and I'm actually, even now, after all those years, I go like, really, is this science-based nutrition? And I talked about nature always knowing what to do, and we fiddle with it. So we should stop and follow nature and see what dogs and cats eat. And I learned that when we eat protein diet, raw food or cooked food with vegetables, I like vegetables, some people don't. I really think that they do add extra nutrition and balance to the body. I've seen all these dogs on raw meat only and meat and vegetables, and then cooked and raw. I think cooked and raw are actually pretty similar. I also like to use heating and cooling meats and vegetables and plants principles, so you can actually look on the recipe maker. But it works really well. And the only time when we need to reduce protein in dogs and cats with kidney disease is when they're in the terminal state. There's also another situation that quite often happens in terminal or the final stage kidney disease, and that's phosphorus increase. And when the phosphorus increases in bloodstream and in blood work, then we can give phosphate binding medication that actually binds the phosphates, but it's just in the terminal stages. It's not indicated for an average dog with starting kidney disease. Protein-based, good quality protein diet. I'm not saying feed high quality kibble and protein, because as soon as your dog is has been diagnosed with kidney disease, he cannot really stay on kibble. Please remember this. I want to have a word or two about glandulars. I know that an hour is coming up and then we'll have questions. I'll just say that the glandulars are made of the tissue that they're supposed to protect. I talked about antibodies against the kidneys. When the kidneys get inflamed, the body creates antibodies. And if the body creates antibodies, we need to neutralize them. Otherwise, they reach the kidneys and damage the kidneys. So we give kidney tissue, kidney glandular supplement that is dehydrated kidneys plus minus some other stuff, and it protects the kidneys. The glandulars act like mother bear, like mama bear, because they protect the kidneys from the antibodies that the body creates. There are some companies out there that make glandular supplements. Depending on where you are, you may go online and look for kidney glandular supplements for dogs or something like that. Unfortunately, we are still not making glandulars because of meat issues and quality issues with meat and so on. I may one day, but not yet. During kidney disease, your dog will lose nutrients. So it's super important to remember nutrients. I'll just go really quickly. Green mint is a mineral and amino acid supplement that I give to my dog packs and also recommend for kidney disease. Soul food multivitamin, super important for the kidneys and the organs function in the body and the immune system. Gut sense probiotics, super important for kidney failure. There's bacteria that metabolizes urea, which is obviously beneficial. It reduces the urea nitrogen in the bloodstream, but it also improves the immune system. 80% of the immune system is in the gut, and if the gut is not healthy, that's a problem. Gut is not healthy due to poor food, diet, allergies, kibble, all that stuff. So it just kind of connects all together. Omega-3 oils are super important for cell repair. So if you have a dog, like let's say the dog of my friend who got into raisins, we tripled the doses of omega at that time because it's good for cell membrane repair and cellular repair, and the kidney units need to be repaired and supported. and liver tune for finely tuning the liver, because liver also participates in kidney health. Preventing infections, cleaning the vulva or the penis is super important. And you can also give D-mannose and cranberry. I do have doses here. Screenshots ready, you guys?
And sorry, the screenshot, the screen sharing just dropped off. If you could try screen sharing again. Thank you. I think about 15 seconds ago, maybe 10.
Oh, so you've seen everything so far,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
This is great. Thanks.
So mannose is actually, it alters the life cycle of bacteria, metabolism of bacteria, and that's why it can prevent infections. If your dog has recurrent infections and doesn't have kidney disease, this is a good way to go to prevent them. Cleaning the vulva or the private parts of your dog with warm water, and then using skin spray, which is I find it useful for preventing infectious problems around that area. Skin spray is a herbal product that we have for mainly skin wounds, but also use it for cleaning your doggy's private parts when they're a little soiled. Cranberry extract dose for dogs that are prone to infections. Again, take a screenshot if you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go on. I talked about the bag. I'm repeating that. Blood pressure lowering drugs. This is super important. Do you remember the ACE inhibitor right here? Angiotensin converting enzyme. If we inhibit it, we lower the blood pressure. If this whole cascade happens, then the blood pressure rises. But it's good, you know, if your dog sometimes loses pressure and the kidneys need it for, remember the old mother's cheesecloth, if there is more pressure needed, the kidneys will rise it. And then if there is less pressure needed, the kidneys will lower it, right? So it's all just really beautifully feedback back to the kidneys and back to the different proteins and enzymes. The blood pressure lowering drugs, I do not really like to use them. I very rarely use them, only if the dog's blood pressure is really high. But there's always there's always a problem, because if we want the kidneys to function well and then we lower the pressure too much, the cheesecloth is not going to push enough urine through, right? So there's a possibility that we will be ending up with more toxins in the body because they will not be filtering. So it's very hard to balance perfectly. And obviously there are certain doses that we need to follow, but still every dog is an individual being, and it is not really easily done. So I don't use ACE inhibiting drugs in kidney disease treatment, but in some rare situations that can be used and it's fair. I'm just going to ask you to take a screenshot really quickly. It's quite small, I know. So what you need to do is to test the chemistry and the urine and protein. I didn't talk about protein losing nephropathy or kidney disease where there's protein loss. When the tubes, the little glomeruli are damaged to the point of protein leaking in the urine, that's a big problem, right? So it's almost like the cheesecloth is letting the cheese out, right? The protein out. And how often do you test? If you have a dog with kidney disease, I recommend retesting every 3 months. In mild to moderate kidney disease, dogs really last for years. And at the beginning, it really surprised me. In severe kidney function problem and failure, obviously that's more months or maybe a year or two. But dogs really make sure that you do take your dog's blood work on a regular basis, starting the age of 5, at least once a year. Monitor urine output, drinking, feed the right food. All those things will help you to create healthy and long life. I know that there's so many things that I could talk about. There's a blog on this topic. Now you'll have the recording of this topic as well. And I hope, number one, that you'll be able to prevent your dog's kidney disease. And if your dog has been diagnosed with kidney disease, that now we have a whole bunch of tools in your arsenal, and and that you will be empowered, and you will be asking the right questions in the veterinary practice. And you will not feel the way I feel when a repair guy comes to repair my car and I have no idea whether he's BSing me or not. You will know now what to ask. And I recommend you to keep this link and store this recording. And thank you so much for listening. And Alicia, there are some questions, I guess, I gather.
There are indeed. Thank you so much. That was an incredible amount of information. And it's super valuable because I can speak from the customer care point of view. This is a topic that we get a lot of questions on. So I know that there are a lot of dog lovers out there that it'll be super helpful for. And those that are watching, I encourage you to share it with friends and family that might find it helpful too. Getting to questions, I'll start with an answer to your question. Earlier on, you asked how many glomeruli, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, are in the kidneys. I Googled it and there's over 1 million of those. So big number.
Big number. So we see what can happen, and it's not that we should kind of take them for granted, these units, but if there's an insult to your dog's kidneys, the kidneys can have quite a bit of supply of these units, but protect them as if they were your dog's life, because they are.
Yep. And for questions that dog lovers that have been watching have posted, thank you all that have participated. I have pulled a few questions. The first one is from Shay. Shay asks, is it safe for a dog to do a liver cleanse if they have stage 4 kidney disease?
Yes, absolutely, it is safe. And first, I wanted to say I'm really sorry to hear. It is anything that could extend your dog's life and boost the body and the system is actually worth it. I will say right here that liver cleanse will benefit a dog of any stage of kidney failure, or with any stage of kidney failure. I would also be inclined, and please contact us, because we are going to be running a trial with a product with the ingredient which is called NMN, and it's a mitochondrial booster and DNA repair kind of ingredient that we'll be doing a trial on. I would be very open to actually include your dog in the trial, because where he or she is. And yes, it's safe for liver too. And Alicia will you can just email us through the website and mention it to the team, and we'll make some arrangements. It may take us still a couple of months before we distribute this, but we'll put you on the list and we'll have you there. You could also buy the M&M actually online. That's possible, and we can give you some tips, but it has not been really tried in dogs in an extensive way, and that's why we're running a trial. I've been on it for 6 months now, more than 3 months. We first do trials on humans, and then on me, and then on my family, and then on dogs. Anyway, thank you.
Great, thank you. And the next question is from Rebecca. Rebecca lets us know that her dog has been born with kidney disease. We were always at the vet with her, and it took almost a year to diagnose. She's 4 now. So there isn't necessarily a question there, but I guess the question I would pose is it common for young pups to be diagnosed with kidney disease straight out of the gate, versus the lecture that you provided really showed lots of different causes and how this can sort of happen over time?
There's a congenital tendency to kidney disease or heart disease or cancer, whatever it is. But I often say that huge portion play the external conditions or the internal conditions of the body, meaning food and biochemistry, and then external environment and stress and so on. It's really hard to know whether the kidney disease was there from the very start, or whether there was some sort of disease trigger or immune system trigger or vaccine trigger. Like, I don't want you to go and blame yourself for whatever you've done in the past. It's not very common. And we still don't know whether it was really congenital or whether it was acquired in the early stages of your dog's life. What you need to focus on right now is your dog's care. And you now have a whole arsenal of tools, and I hope it'll be helpful. Keep us posted, because I know that it's hard to get a diagnosis of a disease, of a problem like this, and it kind of always hangs in the back of our mind. So I know how you feel. Keep in touch and let us know, okay, if you need anything.
Thank you. And the next question is from Michelle. Michelle lets us know that she has a dog that's 13 and a half years old who has been raw fed his entire life. The dog now has stage 4 kidney disease. And her question is, does she have to follow conventional medicine at this point, given that it's stage 4? Are there supplements that can help him at this point?
You know, nobody needs to follow anyone's advice. You don't need to follow my advice, or you don't need to follow anyone else's advice. We veterinarians are not your bosses. We are your service providers, your dog service providers and your providers. To say this, stage 4 is an advanced form of kidney disease. And I dare to say that whatever we've gone through can be applied safely. Your dog's is also an example that even though you do your best, disease can happen. And life is a terminal disease, meaning that we all will get some sort of form of failure of something. And so, number one, you can apply these steps that we've mentioned safely, even in conjunction with your dog's vet suggestions. I guess the aluminum-based phosphate absorbents, the ACE inhibitors may be suggested. The one thing that I would not be doing seriously is the low protein diet of the dried kind. If you want to reduce your dog's protein, you can feed, because it's terminal stage, and then the protein metabolites like urea may elevate, and that's the basis of the recommendations that we should feed low protein. It's basically, these theories suggest, or these principles suggest, that if we feed less protein, we have less metabolites, but we really do malnourish our dogs in the early stages, so it's not a good idea. In the late stage, I would probably combine 50% meat and 50% veggies and squash and pumpkin and some other ingredients to kind of reduce the protein a little bit, so you don't malnourish your dog completely, but you don't increase the BUN burden on your dog's body and increase the toxicity. So that would be my suggestion in a terminal disease. I would not touch kibble for kidney disease dog.
Absolutely.
If I had one wish for the dogs of the world, I would just disappear the kibble. And then I would have a second wish for dogs to be able to eat plant-based diet, because I'm feeling sorry for the animals that lose their lives. But we can't really convert dogs to vegans and vegetarians. We can convert ourselves, but we cannot do that with dogs. So, it's a world. Like I sometimes say, feeding meat is the gift of one animal to the other. The plants give us gift of food. The animals give us gift of food. I have gradually throughout my lifetime kind of oscillated between plant-based to some meat and then plant-based again. And I'm plant-based now, with the exception of a little bit of fish, maybe once every 2 weeks. And that would be either freshwater or non-farmed. Mm-hmm. But, the world is complicated. If you want to know if you're interested, and this is just a side talk, if you're interested in a really amazing nutritional book, it's by Dr. Michael Greger, Gregger, I think. And his book is called How Not to Diet. And he is such a nerd. He actually put together all the different research on nutrition and came up with the conclusion that all the diets are a pile of BS, and that we should just basically eat ideally plant-based diet with whole grains and vegetables and some beans and lentils and stuff like that, and maybe a little bit of protein, but not much. And so
It's a great book for sure. We'll post the link to that as well. I know it's pretty popular.
I think we're done, right? I think we have to be, because I have to go to another meeting, unfortunately. I love you guys. And thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Judith. We'll be back in 2 weeks, I believe. I'll be really
absolutely,
because I'm going back to Canada with
we'll keep the community posted when the next Facebook Live is. But for those of you that haven't had your questions answered, I thank you for posting them, and we'll definitely do our best to get to them throughout the day. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is really valuable information for so many dog lovers out there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.